I actually technically a few hours ago walked out of the new Jujutsu Kaisen movie, and I'm still carrying it with me. Obviously, because I'm going to be doing this with you right now, but also because these stories kind of stay and stick with you because of all the different human like elements that stick along with them. There's something about this series that keeps drawing me back, not just for the fights or the lore, but for the way it treats power and transformation as something more than just mundane, something more than just spiritual, more mystical, more like a dedication to the self, more magical. So tonight I want to sit with everything from that film and give it to you. Everything that it stirred up and let it echo against the journey we've already been kind of going along in this beautiful realm of Magus and the media with you and me together. Watching the movie right after, these earlier arcs, season 1, season 2, and the movie Zero, those were a few years ago, and so it was a beautiful thing to kind of come across today. You see how the main characters' paths intermingle our own lives. I'm going to be definitely talking about, because some of you out there may have never have seen this movie, nor definitely because it just came out a few days ago. But maybe you've never heard of Jujutsu Kaisen. Maybe you don't know about the wonders and beauty of this anime. And so you're going to find out. So we get to see in this movie how Yuji's path opens into something bigger than just survival. How Sukuna, the big bad, his presence just keeps pressing on the edges of our identity. And how sorcerers in this world walk a very thin line that feels a lot like old occult stories and wonderful dreams, maybe even nightmares that we have once lived. Every choice we have becomes a kind of working. Every moment of fear or compassion, of intimacy, shapes that energy that we move through. The movie adds another layer to this. There's a lot of there's some hate out there. There's also a lot of love for those true fans, but it picks up the pieces that have been scattered through the last 2 seasons in the movie, the Shibuya arc, and all of that. It shows how fragile meaning becomes when the world keeps shifting faster than the characters can actually catch up with. And that's where the story feels close to magic, to myth, and the meaning for me. It's all intentional. There's consequence. And the work of trying to stay human amongst all the madness and the chaos of all the cursed energy, all the demons, and all the heroes. So for this live, I want to talk to you through this on my raw feelings, my raw emotions, what I picked up, what I think, and what I like about this film, and how it traces and how it deepens the reality of how mythology's magic and meaning are interlaid not only in our everyday lives, but definitely in the stories that we love, and how JJK has been building us to this thing. And even if in the end of the whole series, maybe it didn't work out for us the way we wanted it to as true fans, just know that we can garner bits of beauty from everything that we do. And so if you've seen it, or if not, or if you're curious even what this is, because you're here with me now, comment and we'll talk about it. Let's sit with everything that this movie has to tell us, and let's just get right to the beginning. And we're doing it live. Thank you for everyone out there. So today, again, like I said in the beginning in the intro, it was a special kind of day. It was one of those mornings where you wake up a little too late. You're like, what am I going to do with my day? I had plans. Then you realize, you know what? I'm alive. Not only am I alive, I'm thriving. And in this thriving, we get to kind of do what we want at times, knowing that we can build to something just a little bit larger. And in the world, you don't even know what really, you have ideas of what that next step can be, but you don't truly know what's going to come from those beautiful steps, just like our main character, Yuji Itadori. Hello to everyone. Hello, Devlin. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful evening. And yes, we'll see how our minds can be blown and expanded. Hello, Sketchy, and hello, Kaiva Rose. Thank you all for joining me and everyone else out there on this fine evening. So, where do we even start? Well, we'll go through a brief little synopsis of even what we're talking about when we talk about Jujutsu Kaisen. It's a beautiful anime about a young lad by the name of Yuji Itadori. Yuji Itadori is a very special character. He's special in many ways. And one of the beautiful ways here, just so we all can see who Yuji is, this is him right here. This is him from the movie's poster. So he's a little more raw, a little more edge. He's had a lot go on in his life. Yuji's the pink-haired lad with the red hoodie on and the black outfit. He's a very relatable character, only to the fact that he's got the full like essence as he walks and runs through this story. It's a story about energy in the world. Energy in the world, what do I mean by that? And most people may not actually take it as being something of energy in the world, but it really is, because it's all about the main power source is cursed energy. Everyone exudes this cursed energy. And in this world, there are such beings called Jujutsu sorcerers. And then there's the mundane individuals every day who don't produce as much cursed energy from themselves, so they actually can't see all the different energies about them. It's very much like our natural everyday life. But season 1 follows Yuji Itadori from the moment he steps out of his ordinary life and into the world of Jujutsu sorcery. He joins his school. He joins the school's occult club, right? So at the beginning, you get to see him. He tries to play sports, but he's too strong for sports, and he doesn't care enough about any of it. He's faster than everybody. He's stronger than everybody. He just might not be as smart as everybody. So instead, what he ends up doing is he joins the school's occult club, where there's only 2 other people there, little nerds trying to figure out and have some fun. But yet the club actually stumbles into a real cursed object, Sukuna's finger. And cursed objects in this world are things that have high levels of cursed energy. Again, everyone produces cursed energy, and the stronger the emotions that you exude from this energy, you then create curses, which are these demonic-like beings. That is the bad little things around them. Most small energied curses don't actually have an intelligence or intellect, but the more energy that is put into these curses by either a single individual or large groups, you end up getting curses that have intellect and energy and intelligence, and they have their own goals, their own lives. No one can see them unless you yourself have a high level of cursed energy. And then upon that, you have the ability to discipline yourself and use that so you can actually produce cursed energy, thus being able to have some kind of supernatural or superpowers in this world. Back to the main storyline, you get Yuji. He makes, with this cursed object that in the occult club that they stumble upon, just a bunch of novices in this world, and you get that hero's journey, the fool entering his journey in Yuji Itadori. And what he does in this story, and what they do is this small little box has a old paper wrapped around it, right? And they open that up, and in that box, there's a finger. And that finger has a bunch of sigils on it. Sigils are magical symbols that are traced or invoked or drawn upon something, and then they have certain effects. They can keep people out, keep people in, or put curses upon people, right? Or sigils have good doings in the world, right? You see a lot of them everywhere. Our own language, our alphabet, our grammar, these are sigils in the world, and some are evoked with more power. These curses that I'm talking about are much like egregores, thought forms that are created from our own emotional states. Large events, different ideas that are then conceptualized so largely, like anger or wrath, those bad ones, or love, and they're egregores that are created from that, and then you get these gods of these things. But in this world, these emotions then create these curses, and there's this finger. Crazy enough, they open it, and all of these different these curses come to that finger because that finger exudes so much cursed energy. That finger is the finger of Sukuna. He is the big bad guy in this. There are 20 of those fingers out in the world because he had multiple arms. He had 2 arms. I had 4 arms, right? That's when I had 2 on each side, sorry. And so what's ended up going on in this is that Sukuna, like thousands of years ago, JJK nerds out there can correct me, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, he was such a powerful Jujutsu sorcerer that he ended up wanting to immortalize himself. So as any sorcerer out there, even in our own modern occult history, magical history, the ones that don't understand the path of immortality isn't the exact longevity of the body, but the immortality of the soul, the philosopher's stone, the alchemizing of your own being to be the highest of goods, right? So you can help bring everybody else up to that. They wanted it for their own power, for their own life, for whatever fear that they had that they weren't willing to walk into and understand, but instead they wanted to control. And Sukuna is one of those. And so what he does is he creates himself into this cursed being, his own curse instead of a human, and then to immortalize himself because he knew that people were going to come after him. He died, right? But not really. He puts himself into his 20 fingers. Sounds a lot like Voldemort and his Horcruxes, right? Very similar mythology to this. There are people through time who didn't understand what that meant to sever your soul into so many pieces. And as we can see in our own modern world, that is something that is going on even today with our more maybe Silicon Valley-esque type individuals, the oligarchical technocracy that's going on out there, or, certain maybe just really rich people who don't understand what true immortality and longevity mean, right? And so, to get back to the story, Yuji eats the finger, thus taking in that cursed energy himself. He becomes the vessel for Sukuna. And that is just how that whole story starts off. And from there, when they open this box, before he swallows it, these curses swarm the building. Yuji makes a split-second choice to save this character who just came in, an actual Jujutsu sorcerer on the same age, Megumi Fushiguro. So becomes one of his best friends. Very reluctant best friend, but best friend nonetheless. And from there on, Megumi's trying to save everyone in there as all these curses are attacking everybody. And Yuji making that split-second choice, so this is season 1, to save Megumi Fushiguro from all these curses and everything. He swallows the finger because that's going to give him more power. And in doing so, that single act folds him into the oldest problem that sorcerers face. Sukuna becomes a presence living inside of him, ancient and cold, and the Jujutsu Society decides Yuji's future will be tied to the collecting of all 20 fingers, no matter what is the cost. So after all this ends up happening in that first episode, one of the most badass anime characters of all time, Gojo, Satoru Gojo, and we'll talk more about him later, ends up arriving. Sukuna takes over after Yuji helps defeat everybody with Megumi, saves everybody. Sukuna takes over Yuji's body. Sukuna is back. And there's a brief little badass battle between Gojo and Sukuna as then Yuji takes over his body again. So Gojo brings Yuji back to Tokyo's Jujutsu High and introduces him to Megumi and their new Team 7, which is like in Naruto, where you get the team up of Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke. You get that in this story because that's just what you need. You always need a team of 3. And so it's Megumi, Nobari, Kugasaki, and you get Yuji Itadori. Their earlier missions lay out the textures of this world, how curses come from human pain, and how sorcerers learn to work with their own resolve as a source of power. Yuji trains under Gojo, who's the strongest sorcerer currently in our world, and discovers that his strength means something different when he's fighting for the shape of a life that he never actually meant to live. One of the biggest themes that you get, and when we get in this movie that I saw today, it's all about when Yuji's grandfather dies in the beginning of season 1. Yuji's grandfather tells him that he must, help people. You've been given responsibility and power, and this is before he even had any power, right? It's the old Spider-Man trope. With great power comes great responsibility. You're a good kid. Go save others and go live a life more meaningful than even mine. And we get that in the beginning of Jujutsu Execution. That kind of thing echoes throughout season 1 and season 2. It echoes there because it gives Yuji something to live for, something more, his own quotation, his own substance and essence, his ninja way, as Naruto would state. Midway through the season 1, the story turns darker with a bunch of really high-level curses coming around. So this one curse, his name is Mahito. He experiments with soul transfiguration. So everything around that has a soul is just manipulated substance for him. It's as evil as it gets. He sculpts people. Mohito's cruelty then forces Yuji to confront death again. Instead of his grandfather dying, Yuji has to confront the death of people around him, humans. And these are things that maybe in our own life, since we don't go to war the same as we used to, we don't live with strife, we create it as much. People aren't dying all around us. So we don't have to confront death on a daily basis, more death on an existential basis. But Yuji has to confront death and meaning in a world where souls are tangible. Nanami steps in, another character, as a mentor who understands how fragile a sorcerer's conviction can be. Yuji vows to kill this character, this bad curse, Mahito, in his many forms because he can duplicate himself. And so this story is a story shaped around grief of this character. Grief for the things that he has to do. Interesting enough, in this world we go into, there's a Jujutsu Academy, and that's where Yuji trains. Because in the beginning, execution is throughout all of JJK, the meaning of this movie, Jujutsu Kaisen Execution. And what is that meaning? Well, execution as in Yuji Itadori, when he swallowed Sukuna's fingers, was supposed to be executed after that, because if he had all 20, Sukuna could come back, and then the whole world would be in utter hellscape, right? And so they were going to execute him. But Satoru Gojo, being the strongest of all, with the immense power of having the 6 eyes and his infinity, which will with some of the powers that he has, Satoru Gojo being alive, is the balancing force amongst the sorcerers world, because there's many families, just like many families in our own world that are powerful and have a lot of influence, but in doing those things, being so powerful and having so much influence, there's so much infighting. And I don't think that's something we realize in our own world as much as happens. We see it kind of, but we think maybe there's this one global conspiracy that's going on to enslave people. And as an idea, maybe there is. But the closer you get into it, just like the bad guys in Jujutsu Kaisen, all those bad guys have and were formed by ideas of strife and how to fix that, suffering and how to fix that. What would the world look like if there was no such thing as curses? These beings, these demonic, like demon devil characters, these gross things that are trying to hurt people. And that's just their nature. It's their character. It's not like we're trying to tell them that we're like, don't do that, but let's not create them, because these curses were created by human emotion, large bouts of human emotion, of people hating and anger and grief, loss, lust, and starvation, and just the everyday world. And interesting enough, if you're in a small village, not as many people, we learn in this world that there's not as many curses, if any, around. Nobari, the female character, she was stated right away in the beginning that she is actually happy she moved to Tokyo, right? Because all this takes place in Japan. JJK is an anime. It's a beautiful anime. And so in Tokyo, obviously being one of the major cities, there are curses everywhere because there are people everywhere. And with being people everywhere and all these curses running amok and people interacting with themselves, you get a lot of negative energy. Creating this cursed energy, creating all these demons, these devils, and these terrible beings that nobody else can see but feel. So it's interesting to take that in, and I'm going to constantly be intermingling these ideas of how can we see that in our own world. And I think that's something missing. If we could conceptualize what our emotions do, not only to us, but everybody around. Something that comes to mind is how in the show, you get some of the main bad guys. One of the main characters is Geto, who is actually the main bad guy. His name is Geto. He come to find out later, his name is actually Kenjaku, and he is inhabited the body of Gojo's best friend. And Gojo's best friend, his name is Geto. In JJK 0, which is it goes back in time like 12 years, in the story of Yuta Okotsu. And in that, it kind of is a good setup to try and understand how we got to season 1 and season 2. Those first few episodes are in the beginning of season 2. So they do these things. They're doing this thing in JJK. The producers and the designers of this series, and they're kind of taking on what everyone else is doing. I think it's brilliant. I don't care what anybody says. You went to this movie that I went to today, knowing that what they're doing is something that Demon Slayer did, not in Infinity Castle, which is brilliant and one of the greatest anime movies of all time, but in the prior movies that they've done, what they do is they just kind of fill you in on what happened in the last 2 episodes of the previous season, and then they move on to the next 2 episodes of the new season, and they just make it into a movie. Some people would call it a cash grab. I could too. But why I love it is because there's so many seasons, there's so much time in between seasons that it can get your heart and soul back into it. It's kind of like a ceremony into the next realm of understanding these stories, these myths. And I want to state very plainly that not all anime is created equal. That just like in the normal West and the Hollywood, there's a lot of crap out there. It's mostly crap. And the just nice thing is that in anime and the East and their storytelling is that when you do get the good stories, they are beautiful and they are telling a true tale, an authentic tale, a mythologized tale, something that we can all understand. Not mythology is a lie, but mythology is the very plot and storyline of our internal instincts being played out in the world so we can truly understand our place in society, in our own individual lives, and in the grand scheme of the cosmos. Go back to what I was saying, so we can understand what curses are. These, and I've said it multiple times, they're like biblical tales of demons. The Goetia and the occult sense of Solomon's Goetia he invoked to create Solomon's temple. Right, if you don't know that tale, but in the Goetia, they're the hollow ones. They lack any natural soul. Some would say they're actually angels that have fallen. Right, there are many different tales of the kleptotic entities of the demonic realm, and again, the more powerful ones that have a lot of cursed energy in this world put into them because of a lot of people either thought it or whole cities or one person. The idea, the Ars Goetia, right? The idea is that you get 4 of them. Kenjaku or Geto is the only one that people can actually see because he actually has a body. But he goes into places and he looks like he's talking to himself, but really he can see and interact with high-level curses. And so they go into a coffee shop. And so the scene plays out where he's kind of talking to himself, drinking coffee. And one of the curses is Jogo. He basically controls fire, flame, lava. He's like a volcano type of entity. And so he basically melts and explodes everybody. But that's the idea, is the more passionate and emotive Jogo got, the more everyone in the coffee house felt his presence without truly knowing that he was there. And he got so hot and emotional that actually everyone in that building that was eating at that diner ends up exploding. Right? And I like to take that into our own lives because these stories aren't just stories. They're something that we have to truly internalize to understand. When have you felt like that? Or all of a sudden, one moment, you're fine and normal interacting with your friends and family or yourself, and then out of nowhere, you get these emotional outbursts. What do we do? Well, just like in JJK, if you have the ability or want to train the ability, it takes hard work and time, discipline. So you have to discipline your cursed energy. You have to discipline it enough so you can use it. Even if you're not powerful enough, you can hone it in a way where you can move on from there. So, leads us into what's going on today, where we get this the whole background of a story, so we can get into talking about this movie. There's one through line in all of it. It's not only Yuji eating the finger of Sukuna, so you have the big bad guy Sukuna. There's Kenjaku, the bad guy, throughout it all. He's inhabited the body of Geto, Gojo's best friend. At the end of season 2, it basically is the conjoining of all these elements of Kenjaku's plan, and his plan is to, Geto's plan was try to rid the world of sorcerers, or rid the world of normal human beings who don't produce and cannot become sorcerers. Well, Kenjaku's plan is a little bit different, and up until this point, no one really knows what it is, so I'm not going to tell you either, because you should read and watch the story. But it seems like what he wants to do is lead us towards what they call these culling games that you start to get the whole laid out plan for in the movie. But first, there's a man in the way, and his name is Satoru Gojo, the strongest sorcerer of this time. And Kenjaku feels like what he can do is he can lock Gojo inside this prison realm. So inside this prison realm, they do it, and they end Shibuya arc with this. And so we're going to get here in the beginnings. I'm going to show you the trailer so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about, how amazing this movie is. The beginning of this movie is the ending of season 2. Ending of season 2, Gojo gets locked away inside the prison realm because it looks like his best friend is back, because Geto died. Geto was killed in the movie in the beginning of season 2. Why? Because Geto wanted to rid the world of mundane individuals, of normal humans. And so only sorcerers could be around. Why? Because sorcerers don't produce curses. Only normal humans do. It's a flawed plan. I think we can see how that plan doesn't seem to work ever, right? You can see his ideal, but he got so upset just saving everybody's life all the time. Why can't these humans just do their own thing? Why can't they protect themselves? His friend Gojo, who was the cocky one, plays the Buddha-like character, the Bodhisattva-like character, the strong, supreme ultimate, because he goes through this death, birth, initiation in the beginning of season 2 when all this craziness happens. And he becomes the strongest. Even in the panel, as he's floating in the air, tripping balls on his own, dopamine release, figuring out how cursed energy works, because you can go online right now and type in cursed energy explained of JJK, and there have been teams of physicists, and this is true, who have tried to decode Gege Akutami's work. Gege Akutami is the man who created JJK. And so there's a lot to it. Again, and there's the same thing with the occult sciences and magic and mysticism, is that people have been trying to understand it for such a long time. Created whole sciences, hermetic sciences off of it. Created alchemy. And from alchemy created chemistry. And now we're in this world. This world devoid of meaning. It doesn't have to be. And we can bring that meaning back to us. And we can do it by watching the correct things, reading the correct things, authentic things. For you, I can't tell you what that is. But what I can tell you is that there are great stories, and I'm going to put them on Magus in the media. So if you're out there currently and you're watching, just make sure to subscribe, like, and share, so we can just do this. We can just continue doing this and creating our own Jujutsu high through the global interconnectedness. It's very similar to The Invisibles. By Grant Morrison, you don't know that you're a part of The Invisibles unless you know that you're an invisible. Somebody who, in his own time and space, sits with their life, not just on an existential realm, but understanding that there's a grand scheme of things, that you're more than just an individual. You may only be in this life by yourself to do it on your own. And I think that's really important, because Yuji, Itadori, goes through pain and he goes through suffering none in our world can even fathom in this normal everyday world of like living in the kind of countries that we do, first world countries. Our pains are huge, but they're on an existential realm. There are people who go through pain every day, death and despair, and having to make hard choices, single pointed choices where all of a sudden it changes the whole route of your very existence. And it could just be, just as Yuji's was in the beginning, joining the occult club because you didn't want to go to the normal everyday sport and you walked away from that. And all of a sudden a whole other realm of science and mind, philosophy, meaning, embodied practice came into your spirit and soul, remembering, right? These things are always there. They're always there for you. And you just have to choose to do so, to change the path. And then along that path, all of a sudden we get the execution, right? And what is that? In this, you get multiple characters being, so you get Yuta, who is in the thumbnail. You got Itadori and Yuta, and that leads us into execution. So you get in JJK Execution, the movie, the beginning being the idea that we're encompassing everything that happened in Shibuya, which is season 2 is all about the Shibuya incident. There is a place in Tokyo, I believe, or in Japan for sure, the Shibuya area that the exact day that this event took place in the anime, in the manga, they had to close down. I think it's Halloween. Shibuya incident all takes place on Halloween in Tokyo, in the Shibuya area. They have to close down Halloween there all the time. At least they did it the first few years this was coming out because of craziness. When one of the main characters gets locked away, supposedly dies or whatever, and ends up happening to him, they erected statues for this character that people went to. This is a phenomena. This isn't just a normal westernized everyday like series that you get out there. For this culture, this is their Superman, right? There's many like that. Goku is the Superman of that area. We all think, what is the idealized version of that? Well, they have Sun Wukong they changed into Goku, right? Sun Wukong is the Chinese myth, and then Japan takes it on like, no, we can do something a little bit different. We can create Goku. And then the ending of the movie ends up being the second half is the next 2 episodes. So all of you who are out there, you want to look and watch this with me. I'm going to stop it and talk about it as we listen. You get Jujutsu Kaisen Execution official trailer, because you know what? We're doing it live. Here we go. Watch along.
Itadori Yuji は僕が殺します。ごめんね、Itadori君。領域展開。Gojo Satoru が封印された。
That is Satoru Gojo, like I was saying.
戦わなきゃ。このままじゃ俺はただの人殺しだ。
So you're seeing Sukuna, that's Yuji Itadori, that's Chozo. Here's all of our characters.
Itadori君、あとは頼みます。始まるよ。再び。Jujutsu Kaisen.
This is everything that's going on in the Shibuya arc. In the ends of season 2. And so what we hear next is the new arc.
頼む。お前の力が必要だ。五条先生の教え子だもん。一筋縄じゃいかないか。
So we're seeing right now that is Yuta Akatsu. He is Satoru Gojo's student and is part of the same family lineage and line as Satoru Gojo. He's one of the most powerful special grade users. And so in this world, they each are cut up into certain classes. Third, second, first level, and then you get your special grade because they are so powerful. And you get to see Yuta go up against Yuji Itadori, 2 of the highest level students of Satoru Gojo, the most dangerous and powerful Jujutsu sorcerer.
もうみんなと一緒にはいられない。勝手に諦めるな。全ての歪みはあの時始まったのかもしれない。 俺の弟に手を出して生きて帰れると思っているのか。行くよリカ。悪いけどまだ死ぬわけにはいかねえんだ。
Great. So, all in all, what do I have to say about this? What I have to say is this movie was fantastic. This movie was amazing. There's a lot of haters out there. A lot of haters about this because I think that they are stupid. And why I think that is because they didn't understand and want to bitch about the thing that you know you're getting when you go into this. They're like, oh, this wasn't as fantastic as Chainsaw Man, or this wasn't as great as the Demon Slayer movies, or it's just a cash grab. Well, let me tell you. I'm going to tell you this. When you walk into these things, you know what you're getting, so you can't ask for any more. You have to love what we're getting. We're getting something that is an in-between mix of season 2 moving into season 3. Why? Because it's been years and it's time for you to wake up. It's time for you to wake up and understand what is going on. Yes, they're making money from this, but also they're trying to refresh your memory. They're trying to bring upon a feeling, and we're going to get that feeling. You got to go into a dark room, to a cave, and you got to project upon the wall, the great rectangle, right? The golden mean rectangle that is around all of us at all times. It's going to project sacredness and meaning if we allow it to. Sometimes we let it project profanities and disgusting and gross entertainment that is mind-numbingly stupid, mind-numbingly non-intellectual, mind-numbingly not wanting you to feel what actual humans feel like. And some would state that that's just an anime. Well, it's not anime. It's an art form. It's not just a cartoon. This is the mythology of the great gods of old, the human legends, right? So I will state, you walk into it knowing what you're going to get. You're getting like I said, last 2 episodes. You're getting the first 2 episodes of the new season. You're getting the last recap of what went on. All the deaths, everything that Yuji Itadori went through. Sukuna took him over in the Shibuya incident, and Yuji Itadori as Sukuna killed thousands and thousands of people in Shibuya. Some of the most badass battles happened, and you get to see little bits of those. It's an interesting order that it was all coming at you from. It was like little flashbacks. They started with Satoru Gojo and being caught within the prison realm, this cube that Geto was carrying along, Geto as Kenjaku, or Kenjaku as Geto, coming along, and he opens it, and it opens and it captures Gojo, locking him away. He can't get loose. It's as if he is dead. And so from there, you also get Yuji looking at all the chaos and dismay and the death that he just had caused. And then it goes through all the different amazing little fights and battles. These fights and battles are the same fights and battles that we have every day. It's just not on such a grand scale with all the death and decay. But what is death in a world where we lack meaning? It's almost as if you've died already. And so it's time to be reborn. It's time to be reborn as who you are. And what I mean by who you are is that authentic self, the warrior, lover, sage, the king, the queen, the highest level of yourself, not the persona, not the mask you wear, but these archetypes that we all play out and play through at all times. Not just one. You're not just one great archetype, but you are many. You are all of them, actually. All the gods and devils and demons lie within the minds of man. And I think that's really important to remember, because then we can remember that the monsters that the good guys are fighting against are the same monsters that we fight with every day. And it's the great representation, and sometimes you get the great dreams that are as beautiful on the inside as they are out. I will state that this movie is beautifully done. The second half of this movie, where you get the first 2 episodes of season 3, are going to be fantastic. They're gorgeous. The fight scenes are amazing, but the feeling every character goes through really does something to you. You can see how through season 1 to season 2 to now season 3, that it is transitioning and transcending its prior designs, cinematography, and everything of the like. It's beautiful. And in this movie and this next season, It's the execution of Yuji Itadori. Yuta Okotsu is going to, after Yuji Itadori. Yuta was going to be executed in the beginning of season 2, which is from the movie Zero, Jujutsu Kaisen 0. So there's season 1, then there's Jujutsu Kaisen 0, and then season 2. That 0 was turned into a movie, which is actually just the first hidden inventory arc of season 2. So they're doing this thing, right? And this thing in the anime movies where they're just separating different episodes or seasons from the manga into movies. And I, who likes those types of things, loves that kind of thing, no matter what it is, because I've been waiting to see amazing stories from my comic books and mangas being played out so I can watch them. And when you watch them, you get to see a lot more. Your imagination does a lot, but when you get to see them in front of you, it's just sometimes more beautiful, and your hair can stand on end, and you truly feel like you're encompassing and inhabited by these creatures, by these archetypes. So you can play them out. Because why? If this is all is nothingness, then what about the fact that my brain doesn't actually, the neurons in it doesn't know the difference between what's happening on screen to what's happening in myself. The only thing that changes that, right, is that I have skin. And so that stops it from me experiencing those things. Why somebody sneezes, you sneeze. Why, these mirror neurons are taking, when somebody has an emotion, you can emote just with them. So just like any great story, great mythology, these things can help us become initiated into our own realm, into our own world. And so what we get with this amazing movie that I really liked. So across the first 2, I'll just kind of go through it a little bit. Jujutsu Kaisen keeps circling a truth that shows up in a lot of esoteric works. And that truth is that power is never just a tool. It is something that reshapes the person who carries it. And every step deeper in that world demands a clearer sense of intention. That's what we get with Yuji Itadori in this. Why it's amazing that we have this ability to go to these big screens and experience these stories. It's because we can place ourselves within the character. And in this movie, you truly get that, because even every hill he climbs, he still questions his actions. Should he continue? No. And then a friend shows up and it says, you must. We are more than that. We don't hold the same karma as normal people because we are now Jujutsu sorcerers. And we have a responsibility. You didn't do that damage. It was that thing that overtook you. And it's not just an emotion that overtook him, but an actual being, because he had to sacrifice his parts of himself to save others. And then in doing so, brought this craziness into the world. And so he, rightfully so, is reflecting upon all this death and decay that happened around him because of his actions, trying to save one individual for the many. It's the more pragmatic, utilitarian version of the idea of, the philosopher's train on the 2 tracks: save the many or save the one or save the many, right? Who do you kill? I don't truly think in a philosophical manner that there ever was an actual answer to that. It is more telling of who you are as a person, as an individual. Because in these stories, you've already made the choice. Just in our life, you've already made the choice. The stars have made the choice, your choice for you. These forces that are bigger than us. You are here to decide how you're moving amongst the chaos. What kind of disciplines and practices can you take on, and how much responsibility you can put on your shoulders. Yuji Itadori places the responsibility straight on his shoulders, and he had a mentor to help him through that. But every time he had to make a decision, that mentor was never truly there, because you become your own mentor. You train your higher self. You train the highest aspects of yourself. So when great choices had to be made, you've already made them, because the training comes back into play, just like the great forces of warrior culture. You go and you do, and upon doing, things will happen, and you try to do it for the greatest good. And hopefully that greatest good is backed up by a discipline, a philosophy based in the heart. And that's the beautiful thing that Yuji Itadori did, is that he always based it in his heart, based upon his grandfather's saying. And that's how the beginning of the movie starts. And so as I raced this movie, not wanting to see the previews because I don't want to see previews, I just want to see the movie I go to because previews take forever. I made it just in time. I didn't have to hear Marcus of the Marcus Theater people blather on with their terrible jokes. I walked into the theater and I sat right down and I watched the movie. It was a beautiful experience because I made a last second decision to go. So we could do this together here tonight to expand upon the philosophies of what anime, what storytelling can give us, what JJK brought to the table. The beauty of what it brought to the table, I got to watch it play out. And the movie starts with his grandfather, like I just said, who died and told him those beautiful things. Like, I know you have more in you. I know you can bring this greatness, this power that you have. Even before Yuji ever had the power, his grandfather knew it was in him. Die a meaningful death. Die a meaningful death, Yuji. Do better than I did. And Yuji sat with that, and he sits with that every episode throughout the entire series. That's why death means so much, and that's why it keeps coming back every time in this show. The great questions and how he has to take on the death of many because of his choices, because he took in the fingers of the demon, of the great demon Sukuna. And so, thinking about that, you should think about it yourself. What great demons have we taken on that you don't even know? What are the philosophies of life that you've taken on? Are these things that you can be proud of? Or are these things from other people, from other sources that don't lay a great foundation for growth, like the great flower from the muck, like the lotus flower building itself upon the muck? Because the muck has many nutrients, knowing that lotus bloomed from it. So the muck isn't dirty and gross. It sits there with all the things plentiful for that beautiful lotus to grow. You got to ask yourself, where are these teachings coming from? And can I seriously take in things that I don't understand where they're coming from? So that's why you go to the sources. Satoru Gojo, who said, between heaven and earth, I am the honored one. And so that's Gege Akutami's claiming that Gojiro, or at least saying in the back end that Gojiro is playing that Buddha character who is helping guide the rest of the youth, the beauty of the world. And his main thing as a teacher, as a mentor, is I want you to surpass me. I want you to take on the great meaning of the Buddha. Can you become the honored one between heaven and earth? And so when he ends up being trapped, it makes sense. People got really mad that Gojo gets trapped and we won't get to see him. If you're a manga reader, you don't get to see him until more along the very end, one of the last arcs, one of the last fight scenes. In the anime, after what happened in the last season and in the beginning of this one, you don't see him again. He's gone now. People were mad. Not understanding the point of growing the seedlings. Satoru gave them everything he could. It's your turn now. And sometimes I think that's what the great sages and mystics of old have trying to do with us. Please take on these teachings. It's our turn. We can't do it for you anymore. We are just watching. And we're hoping that we gave you the seeds to help usher in a new world. Because a new world's coming whether we want it to or not. So it's not something we can hold back. There's no going back. There's only moving forward. And for everyone out there, for all of you who have a magical practice, a mystical practice, an embodied practice, looking to better yourself, become more authentic, more aware, it's not an easy path. If you've ever lived in some of these cities or been introduced or been confronted with this more, on either side of the aisle, spiritual materialism, religious materialism, right? San Francisco, Austin, Boulder, Asheville. These are places where we do it live. Exactly. These are places where it's tough. It's tough because I always imagine people have good intentions. And yet, when you go to these places, you realize how lost people truly are. And the only reason I can say that is because I found myself lost in those places and had to find myself again. And even for a second, where you question what you're doing is correct. Are you moving after success or a true path? Are you moving after trying to put your persona first, or are you looking to wash it away, to understand the shadow, or to hide it away and present yourself as a light being, as a star seed, as a sorcerer or a magician? That's not what this is about. It's called Magus in the media because Magus is the magi, the priests of old, the magicians are the ones who are the storytellers, bards, oracles, priests who hold the secrets. And in our day and age, we have to admit that there is magic everywhere. But it comes in all flavors and sizes. That if we can understand that instead of the scientific materialism that we have fallen for, that built a great world, but maybe not a beautiful one, because the greatest beauty was created by nature itself. So you can go into the natural world and see the beauty and see how technology has been emitted. But the only way to do that is also to confront the darkness within. And that's then what these stories do for us, because the darkness within is very dark. There are demons amok, and there are crazy curses in these energies, but you don't have to be controlled by them. Nor are you being controlled by them at all times. It just kind of sets seeds in our back of our mind. You're not like signing a pact when you go to movies or you're turning on the TV. So let's not get misguided by that. Nor can black magic truly affect you. Curses. Going to people that don't know what they're talking about and they say, through only me can I save you. Like great teachers like the Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, Mani, Zoroaster. They didn't want people to follow, even though some of the scriptures say that. I think it's a mistranslation. They wanted to say, hey, you can do this too. That's the esoteric teaching of Christianity. If you can read into these great parables, he says, I can only, I can lead you to the water, but I can't teach you to fish. I can teach you to fish, but I can't teach you how to eat it. I can teach you how to eat it, but I can't teach your body how to integrate it into nutrients. There's levels. And so we must understand in these levels that we're going to be confronted by one side or the other. Extremism on all sides, scientific materialism, extreme fundamentalism in religion, extreme fundamentalism in your spiritual communities, in the magic community, in the occult. People who misread these things. Just like in our show, how the bad guys are misreading what the purpose of the world is about. The mystery school of the world. And so you get the great play act and the drama, and you get the characters having to confront these demons. We're moving into the culling games in JJK as I swing back around to Jujutsu Kaisen Execution. Again, in this movie, first 2 episodes of the last season, or a recap of the last season, first 2 episodes of the new season, leading us into the culling games, where Kenjaku's great plan is going to take forth. And so at the end of the movie, you get a lot of really fast laws of the culling games. There's a lot of them. I've read the manga and watch this now, and it's like crazy things are happening. So what Kenjaku is doing, he's bringing back sorcerers of the past into a small section or region, and they have to all battle. And that's going to lead into Sukuna coming forth throughout this, and a bunch of craziness. So I highly recommend everyone reading, watching this beautiful show. So, as we get it, again, season 1, Jujutsu Kaisen sets the foundation through Yuji's initiation. He enters the occult world the way many people step into magic. Not through careful study, but through a moment that forced his hand. A lot of us got our first inklings not through careful study, but through the random occurrence of life paths, of interesting things that happened, crazy death-defying stunts, psychedelic activity, cannabis use, whatever it is. We turned on that somatic circuit, and all of a sudden we were asked a question. Are you willing to take the path? And are you willing to do the hard work? Yuji swallows Sukuna's fingers. He feels like a classic threshold at that moment in season 1 where chance and destiny blur. Once he crosses it, he becomes a vessel for something older than himself, and he has to learn how to hold his own inside that pressure. This echoes the way practitioners describe the early stages of our own inner work. You awaken to something, then spend the rest of your life learning how to coexist with it. I awakened something once in my earlier years, saw something in my visions and crazy youth in the early times. I recommend no one to do to do the things, right? Psychedelic use in your earlier years, maybe not the best, but it definitely makes you wonder more. Try to get back to it. Not everybody makes it. Not everybody has that thriving, that mercurial energy. But for myself, you see things. Certain geometries, certain beings, certain stories play out, perceptions change, reality shifts, and all of a sudden there's something more. And you're like, I have to find that. I have to figure out what that is. I have to remember. And in awakening something in yourself, you spend the rest of your life going out and through trying to figure out what that is. Yuji does it. Megumi and Nobara, they balance that picture for him. It's his 2 friends. Each of them treats their technique, because each character has their own cursed energy technique, is an extension of their own convictions. An occult term, when you have these powers, like in these shows, in the occult terms, it's revealing the different approaches to practice. Megumi works from the contemplation, always measuring every step he has. Very logical. Nobara, she works from a resolve, passionate. She allows her identity to charge her techniques. Together, they show how a person's inner landscape shapes their power more fully than their formal training. Yuji's arc through the Shibuya, it reads like someone grappling with their own shadow. Every step somebody dies, and he has to deal with it. Upon watching these things, I've had my hair stand on end. My spine tingles. And you get that urging, that welling. You're like, I understand. You can go through these things. You can understand. You can initiate yourself through these stories. So then you can go into your own space, into your own group, and you can take on that next path to try to understand your own inner workings, your own shadow just a little bit better. And so all in all, this movie was more than just a movie. It's more than just understanding what the higher-ups want in the JJK world, the higher-ups of the sorcerers. They're always wanting to control something. So what they do is they send a dog to destroy a dog, right? You send Yuta to destroy Yuji, 2 students of the greatest sorcerer that they couldn't keep in check. And now that greatest sorcerer is gone. So let's hold a pact with Yuta. You only can do this if we make sure you are going to see it all the way through. And that's where we get a beautiful fight with Yuji and Yuta. It's amazing. Yuji's very strong. Yuta is very, has so much cursed energy, it outpours from him. The only person to rival him in his cursed energy is Gojo, his mentor, but it was said that Yuta carries more than that. So we see that great battle, and you see some other side battles going on. This is all going to lead us into the Culling Games. I loved this movie. It was a great day, and I got to spend it here with you. This movie, all in all, I don't even want to give it a ranking. Some people are ranking this movie 4 out of 10. And they said that is because they didn't like how the beginning was the first 2 episodes. I already told you that's bunk and false. You knew what you were getting when you went into it. In the last half, they would say a 6 out of 10. I don't understand what you're ranking it for then. I would, I don't want to give it a 7. Give it an 8. Doesn't even matter anymore. These rankings are moot. Can't trust any of them. It's like the polls for politics, or it's like Rotten Tomatoes. People go to these things for themselves so they can, yes, it's okay to get away, so they can feel these feelings all the way through. We're going to move into season 3 in January of JJK, and we're going to get to see amazing art and great characters express themselves, experience things that we only get to experience through the screen and in old stories, and they're coming back. These old stories are coming back through these great animes. And at the end of JJK Execution, you got to see them go into an experience with a character that is beyond space and time, Tengen. Tengen is the one who controls all the barriers in the JJK world. And that's who Kenjaku's trying to get down to, because he's the one who protects everyone in his own way. Looks like a giant thumb, because he's become immortal. He's become more than his body. So they go down there to try to figure out, how do we get Gojo free? Because it seems to them that only Gojo can save everybody. And then upon doing so, we realize that Gojo isn't the savior of everything at all. So what I hope that you get from this is more than just my ramble and rant on Jujutsu Kaisen Execution, more than just an understanding that Yuji Itadori is kind of like all of us, a little strange, questioning things a little more, but truly has a good heart and is trying to find meaning in a world, trying to ask these questions. Can I die a meaningful death? Do I have the code of Bushido integrated into my soul? What is the highest ideal and the highest self that I'm willing to move towards? And am I willing to truly do the hard work, sacrifice bits of myself, let those things go to take on new understanding? I think these shows can be more than just entertainment. But I think that they can show us a part of ourselves that we're trying to actualize and that we're trying to remember. And through these lives and through my video essays, to show how Magus and the media can bring these stories directly to you so you can understand the Adam's path, the magical path. That what these characters have been doing is exactly what you're doing on a day-to-day basis through your path of the magician, through path of the mystic. You're trying to train your will, hone your intention, and build focus. Trying to understand discipline. You're trying to take in an ancient way as in a way that has been thread through reality to this very moment, that we can remember and wake up to the great noise. That through the embodied practice, through dedication, through whatever your yoga is, whatever your magic is, whatever your meditation or mysticism is, that you are a flawed being. And that's okay. That you hold every monster, demon, and devil within you, just as you hold every great god, angel, and mystic. And upon watching and reading and experiencing life, we can see how these things can be ignited, and if we make ourselves back up through the tree, through every layer of existence to the highest version of ourselves, to the divine. That through the path of theurgy, or the divine working, we can be what is between heaven and earth. Not just ascend upward, but understand that at that same time the ascent is going upward, the divine is a lightning bolt path down into our very being. And we're becoming embodied gods. Mortal, human, but having levels of divinity ignited into our very self. And through that, there will be that suffering. Because the great saying, Mahasukha, or all is suffering and imperfect harmony, is the first understanding of what it's like to be in this world. And upon there, we can take it on as the great hero does on his journey. We can walk forth on the path through all the forests and all the caves, all the great cities, and we can feel what's going on, and we can smile a little more. You can ask more questions. You can interact in a way that is authentic, and it doesn't have to be robotic. It doesn't have to be what everyone else is doing. You can walk your own path. But upon doing so, make sure you find a mythology or take on many. And so I want to say thank you for everyone on this fine evening listening to my Jujutsu Kaisen Execution review, reflection, contemplation. Season 1 and Season 2 are over. The movie is out. Go out and watch it, or not. Come here. And if you haven't already, subscribe, like, and share so we can continue doing this. You got to ask yourself, are you willing to become the magician on your path, or are you going to allow others to do that for you? Because if you do it, there are many beautiful jewels that you will find. The unconscious mind is like Aladdin's cave. It has wonders and jewels and beauties, but it also has the Jinn Abide. And that Jinn Abide is the unconscious realm with all those demons and curses and devils. But as we walk the path, we gain foundation and control on our journey, and we have the ability to find balance and harmony in the everyday world. So, thank you for watching Magus in the Media, and I hope you have a fantastic evening.